Hello and welcome back. We're going to continue to work on our tropical landscape painting. So let's go ahead and open it up. I'm going to click on my folder. I'm going to go to Documents, Digital Art Class, find my tropical landscape project folder, and then I'm going to, it doesn't look like it's colored, but it is. I'm going to double click on my preview here of the Gimp file to open that in the program. And I can close or minimize this window. So the last time we were together, we looked at creating an abstract painting. So we're going to take the information that we learned from our experimenting and apply that now to our artwork to create a more painterly look and a less coloring book page solid colors here. To do this, it's going to take a little bit of practice. So we have our two layers here. The reason we have our layers here is if we try to use our select tool, our fuzzy select tool. So remember, tools, selection tools, fuzzy select. And we try to select our sky right now on this original copy layer. It doesn't always, oh, there it did. It selected the sky beautifully because it's a solid color. As we continue to paint our project and we add more colors there, that fuzzy select tool is not going to work. So you can always revert back to your other image and select areas using this tool here. Okay, so super important. And also, I wanted to point out you can select multiple areas at the same time by holding the Shift button. Okay, so sand, water. If I go click on the next water, my first selection disappears. If I hold the Shift button, my cursor changes to a little plus sign for my fuzzy wand, and I can add those areas in. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start. Let's start with some water. So if we're thinking back to our original, or like not original, but our reference image of some kind of water, we said that the water's lighter towards us, darker as it gets towards the sky or the horizon line. So using that information, we're going to go into our color tool. I'm going to start by clicking on the original water color, and then I'm going to start by making it a little darker. And now I'm going to choose my brush tool. So we're going to be bouncing back and forth between the fuzzy select and the brush. Why is this important? Without that fuzzy select tool, look how large my brush is right now. We're going to go down a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to make this a very, very soft brush. Okay, with the selection tool, that area selected, I want to make sure I'm painting on the original copy layer. Super important that I do not paint on that original. I'm using the original to select areas, but I'm painting on the original copy. So here is my brush, and if I start painting up here in the sky, nothing happens. But as soon as I get into that selected area, so it's going to help me color inside the lines or paint inside the lines. So I'm going to add some of this. Maybe I'll come in and make that a little darker. And I'll add some of this. Something like that. Maybe I'll come in and go a little lighter down here. All right, so already it looks a lot cooler than it did before. Think about some other brushes. Maybe you want to come in and add some texture to your water. And I'm in my light color, so maybe I'm going to go back to my darker color and not go crazy. Kind of think that's like a sponge, but I kind of like that. It brings some of that dark down. I'm going to change the color and make it a little lighter. Whoops. Actually, I'm okay with that. All right. Not sure about that last one. If you don't like it, edit, undo. Okay. Now, so I have some cool things happening here with my painting, and I'm going to try doing a little bit of smudging now. So I'm going to go to my smudging tool. I can leave that same brush on there. It's going to add more texture with my smudge. Oops. Somewhere I'm picking up brown, which might not be, it's from this. Not sure why that's happening because of my selection tool. That's okay. I'm going to grab my rounded brush here and make my brush much bigger in size. And I'm going to get away from that tree. I really love it. I think that's a glitchy thing that's happening. And so I may end up going back over top of this a little bit. I've got to figure out what to do there. If you really screw up and you don't like it, I can always go back to this original copy or back to my paintbrush, choose my watercolor again, and paint that in there where that was happening. And let's try, instead of the smudge, let's try blur. And I'm going to make my size a lot smaller. So this is really about experimenting, but now you're going to experiment on your project and try to get some of those cool color variations in there. Okay, so I'm just going to keep working on this a little bit. You have several days to work on kind of work on this so you can experiment. And ooh, one of the brushes I forgot, don't forget your My Brush tool. And in the My Brush tool, I liked that sponge. And I feel like it kind of works like the smudge tool, but doesn't have that effect with the palm tree. So that might be my solution. I may need to put the color back in and use my sponge brush to model it and get those subtle variations back. So let me try that. I'm going to speed up the process a little bit here. All right, so I'm getting happier with my water, but I wanted to kind of move on and show you something else. So we're going to go to the original copy, and I'm going to go, no, I'm sorry, original copy, and I'm going to get this fuzzy select tool. I'm going to select the sky, and I'm just going to go back and select the water. Do you see how now the water, when I go to select it, is not selecting? If I want to recolor that or work on that again, it's difficult. So try to work on one area and become super happy with it. It's going to be a more efficient use of your time than going back and forth. But if you do need to go back and you want to rework this area and you don't want to have these kind of misses in your selection, you can, in the layers palette, go to your original, select the shape, hold that shift to select multiple parts, then just make sure you switch back to the original copy, and then you have those clean selected areas because you're using the original to get your selection. So I can go back into my paintbrush and go back to a very soft white, put some highlights in. I'm a little disappointed in my smudge tool with the selection. I think it becomes too mottled with that sponge, but just add some more in and we'll just see. Okay. Some other really cool brushes to try out. So instead of using that sponge, I'm going to see what there is a smudge brush or smear tool in the paintbrush as well. And I think that's going to be more my speed. So working between those ideas of the sponge, I just love the texture that I was getting. The other thing to be aware of is directional movements. So do you want things to be smudged vertically or horizontally? And then so maybe what I will do is come back in and add some texture back in. Okay, so let's say I'm done with the water and we're going to move on to another area. So I'm going to go to either the original copy, use my fuzzy select tool. So I'm in the sky now, and I'm going to do a similar thing, continuing to add paint to the project. So maybe I'll start off with my paintbrush, remembering that the picture is darker blue higher in the sky and lighter as it gets closer to land, and water a little slightly darker there. So just kind of referencing my picture, or a picture rather. So I've got the same color. I'm going to start with a lighter version of that color with a fairly soft brush and lighter above land. And just add some value, and then I'm going to go darker at the, and maybe slightly bigger up at the top. And I can slowly adjust this opacity and things down. Remember, opacity, when you layer it, will build up. And so I could create a real soft, just with brush strokes and no smudging at all, just by continuing to bounce back and forth between my colors and my brushes and my opacity. And every once in a while, maybe a cloud. Okay, so something like that. Don't be afraid to use the My Brush tools. If it gets to be too liney with your light spots, like too brush, then you can use this to feather the edges, make it a little more wispy. Okay, and so I'm pretty happy with my sky. Water still needs some work, but sky I'm happy with. And you're going to continue to do this with all aspects of your painting. You have several sessions to do this, so I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to call this done for day one. So I'm going to go File, Save. Do not forget to save. And then I'm going to go File. I'm going to do my screenshot for the day. So go ahead and take my screenshot, making sure to get my file name at the top, my project, and that layers palette is also really helpful. Right, so I've taken my screenshot. I'm going to open that screenshot, and today's screenshot, we'll save that into our screenshot folder. So Documents, Digital Art Class, Screenshots, and this screenshot for today is going to be the 13.07 screenshot. I'm going to hit save. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that. If you do have any concerns or questions, again, this is a lot about experimenting and going back and forth and trying things out. Please let me know, okay? And I will be happy to help you. Otherwise, enjoy the process.